What is up, everyone? We are coming freshly off of UFC 282. Guys, I got a lot to say about the UFC. I got a lot to say about the card. I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to break down the prelims. I'm going to break down the main card. We're going to have some serious talks on the UFC, guys. Stay tuned.
Menacing to Chad. Which is fun, but you got to be ready for that. But it's no
And what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fist First. As always, I am your host, Steve, and we are streaming here on DSM Media's YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Guys, please do not forget to hit that like, follow, subscribe button, whatever platform you guys are watching on. Please hit that follow. It'll help us out tremendously. So UFC 282. UFC 282. What a joke. What a bad look for the UFC. I'm going to get into all that later. Usually I'm so excited to break down a pay-per-view for you guys. I'm so excited to, these kind of shows are usually my most anticipated shows to do, breaking down potential chaos, UFC pay-per-view event, and I'm just not in that kind of mood today. I'm really disappointed, but I'm not even going to start out with news, guys. I'm going to jump right into this card because there is just so much I want to talk about, and so much that's really getting on my nerves. So we're going to jump first. We're going to just go through the prelims here. The prelims, all right. I did say the prelims would take over the card here. I think the prelims were better than the main card, with the exception of a few fights. The last two fights, which I will get into, really killed the card for me. Anyway, starting off here, first fight, Cameron Simon taking on Steven Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow Koslau. What a nickname. Steven Koslau taking this fight on short notice. Steven Koslau looked pretty solid in the first round. Slightly sloppy wrestling, but pretty much controlled the majority of that first round, which was kind of surprising for us. And you have to think after round one, Steven Koslau was probably up in that fight. Now, both of these guys are UFC debuters. Steven Koslau has not made it past the first round. He does in this fight, so we move to the second round. Cameron Simon starts to take control. Wrestling, striking. He starts to take over the fight. We're starting to see Steven Koslau's gas tank a little bit, right? It's his first time professionally in the second round. You're starting to see the effects of that. Middle of round two, Cameron Simon lands an illegal knee. Steven Koslau was a grounded opponent. Cameron Simon hits him with a knee to the head. Cameron Simon gets a point deducted, not a disqualification. Steven Koslau wanted to continue the fight. Props to Steven Koslau. But even with the illegal knee, Simon pretty much controlled that round. He was going to win that round anyway. But I think that illegal knee by Simon really is the game changer. I think this fight went south for Koslau ever since, or everything after that knee just went downhill for Koslau. Simon started to land more, especially as we get into round three here. Simon really starts to let loose in round three. Really starts attacking Koslau, especially to the head. As Cameron Simon looks really great with his leg strikes, with his knee strikes, especially the upper leg, upper knee strikes. He looked like an absolute killer in the third round, not going to lie. Cameron Simon does end up getting the knockout here in round three. I do think the illegal knee changed this fight, though. So to be honest, even though Cameron Simon got the win here by knockout, Both guys look pretty well in their UFC debut. So props goes to Simon for getting his UFC win in his UFC debut. I should say his first UFC win in his UFC debut. But also props to Steven Koslow for looking pretty well in his debut on short notice. I think Koslow needs to clean up his striking a little bit. He's I know he's a majorly a wrestler. He did look a little sloppy though. Maybe clean things up a little bit there. Like we always say all the time, UFC is just a different animal. You have to skill regardless of how good you are on in one verse of fighting. Cameron Simon, round 3 knockout. Moving on, TJ Brown, Eric Silva. We got another UFC debut here in Eric Silva. He's not steal the show. TJ Brown comes out blazing. I thought TJ Brown was going to knock Eric Silva out in the first 30 seconds. TJ Brown runs out, gets a huge hit on Silva. I thought he was gone. Silva recovers, the fight settles down. The fight goes to the ground where you think, okay, maybe once this fight goes to the ground, you might see Silva dominate. He's known for that. But it's actually just the opposite. TJ Brown dominates Silva. TJ Brown completely out wrestles Eric Silva in the first round. We move on to the second round. Silva starts off great with his hands. TJ controls the ground game. Pretty much the majority of round 2 is TJ Brown controlling the ground game. Round 3 comes. Yet again, TJ Brown dominates the ground game, eventually getting the win via submission. TJ Brown submits Eric Silva. Silva's UFC debut doesn't go as planned. But TJ Brown, what an impressive fight. What an impressive win. Heck of a way to get your name out there, TJ Brown. Great fight. TJ Brown by submission. Moving on. So what could have been the fight of the night. Billy Quarantillo taking on Alex Hernandez. Now, early on in this fight, you kind of had to figure Alex Hernandez was going to push the pace early, right? Alex Hernandez is a guy who is known for not really having a great gas tank. So obviously, you had to figure Hernandez was going to try to push the pace of this fight early. He does. He lands some heavy shots on Billy Quarantillo in this first round. I thought he potentially could have finished him in the first round too. Similar to TJ Brown. He doesn't. It moves on to the second round, and Billy Quarantillo gets busy in the second round, landing some heavy shots of his own, eventually getting the knockout win against Alex Hernandez in this fight. Billy Quarantillo showing off his amazing cardio again. This dude does not get tired. This dude is never out of a fight. I thought Quarantillo was out of this fight in the first round. Alex Hernandez looked great. He was putting the pressure. He was laying heavy shots. Hernandez is going to be such a heavy featherweight, but Billy Quarantillo sticks it out, gets a few shots in of his own, gets the knockout, gets the win. Big shot, big applause for Billy Quarantillo, but do not discredit Alex Hernandez. He's in this featherweight division. He's probably going to be one of the heavier hitters in this division. I think he proved that in this fight. But we will see if Hernandez's gas tank continues to play a role for him, especially in this featherweight division where cardio is pretty it's up there for you know, what is needed to successfully win featherweight fights. It's cardio is definitely up there. It's not the most important thing. Yeah, that fight could have been fight of the night. That was a great fight. Quarantillo, Hernandez, great fight. Another fight that I thought could have been fight of the night um, before the fight happened. After the fight happened, no, I don't think it had a chance to win for the night. And that is Chris Curtis taking on Joaquin Buckley. I thought this was gonna be a really interesting fight, a really fun fight. Um, and it was. It wasn't a bad fight. Buckley really pushed the pace in the first round, throwing a ton of strikes. Curtis was extremely defensive. Chris was patient, and Chris Curtis just worked the counters against Buckley. Um, n- to be honest, Buckley threw a lot, but he didn't really land a lot. He landed a few shots. I think Chris Curtis landed a few heavier counter shots. Um, yeah, as much as Buckley throws, I would say he wins. He probably won the round based off aggressiveness. Chris Curtis just looked better. He just looked a lot better. And that pace, defensive mindset for Chris Curtis, the counteractive mindset for Chris Curtis pays off in the second round where he lands a counter jab uh, to Joaquin Buckley, knocks him out. Buckley falls to the ground, Curtis knocks him out again. That's right, Chris Curtis knocked out Joaquin Buckley twice. Shame for Buckley, but Chris Curtis, the smarter fighter there. Um, Chris Curtis maybe looking to get a top 10 opponent next, I would think. I think it's time for Chris Curtis to really show us what he's made of. So we will see looking at that division here. Curtis is 15. Let's see. Imavov and Gastelum's fighting. Till just fought. Hermanson just fought. Phew, Strickland's about to fight. You got a lot of fights coming up for middleweight, so we're gonna have to wait and see on Chris Curtis. It might be a little bit more time before we see him again if he wants a top 10 guy. Moving on to Edmund Shabazian, the return of Edmund Shabazian. He took on Dacha Lugiambula. This was just a clinical performance by Edmund Shabazian. Just 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 a clinical performance. I mean, what a sniper. Um, you know, I like a fighter like Shabazian. I really like how he fought this fight. He really invested in the body on Lungi and Bula, right? And when you invest in the body, especially with his body kicks, which he did a lot, he threw a lot of front kicks to the body. When you invest in that, your opponent starts to drop his hands. That opens the door, for a front kick to the head, a higher front kick, a higher kick, maybe a knee, and that is exactly what happens. The Edmund Shabazian investing in the body pays off. Uh, it set them up for a wonderful knee. Shabazian gets the knockout on a wild Lungiambula. Lungiambula, when you look at this man, he is scary looking. He is absolutely jacked, but he just throws way too wild. Like I said, Edmund Shabazian's versatility, um, his fight IQ, it was just better. It's just going to be better than Lungiambula. It pays off. Shabazian is definitely back, guys. This was a guy that was in title talks a couple years ago. He is back and he's ready to make a statement. I'm very curious to see what's next for him, to see how quickly he can reclimb this middleweight ladder. So we will see, and that's Edmund Shabazian is a name if you don't know that you might want to keep an eye on. You might want to keep an ear out for Edmund Shabazian's name because he is back. He's only 25. He was an ex-title in title contention a couple years ago, like I said. Still young, still got time to grow, still got talent. We will see what's next for Shabazian. Cannot wait to see how he climbs this middleweight ladder. And that is going to move us into the complete and utter domination. Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rosenstrike taking on Chris Daukaus. Rosenstrike, there's not really much to talk about this fight. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, 23-second knockout on Chris Daukaus. He completely obliterates him with a jab. I mean, Rosenstrike is so strong and so vicious. He gets Daukaus to the ground with a jab 23 seconds into the fight. Jairzinho Rosenstrike is on an absolute warpath for gold. And to be honest, watching this fight, it made me think back a week. It made me think about Sergey Pavlovich taking to Ivasa, Sergey Pavlovich, power. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, power. Hey, I would like to see these guys go at it. Two top ranked heavyweights. I know I said Pavlovich is. I kind of like him taking on Gane, test his talent. But hey, if you're looking for something fun, if you're looking for blood, Rosenstrike versus Pavlovich, I would like to see it. A battle of just raw power. But Chris Daukaus might want to reconsider weight classes. Somebody brought up the idea of light heavyweight to him, and he said that that's definitely not out of the question. That's 3 losses in a row for Chris Daukaus in the heavyweight division, all 3 by knockout. I would have to think his heavyweight hope are most likely done at this point. I don't think he necessarily has to retire, but hey, why not move down to light heavyweight just to take a shot at it, you know? But anyway, 23-second knockout for Jairzinho Rosenstrike. That moves us on to the 18-year-old phenom, the preliminary main event. Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Jay Perrin. And to be honest, not a whole lot to go off of this fight. Raul Rosas Jr. is going to be a problem on the mat. That's what I gained. He's going to be a problem on the mat. How long can he keep that up, though? I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure he's going to get more involved in the striking game. I'm sure he's going to get, he's only 18. He's has so much time to groom, so much time to grow. Um, the ceiling is limitless for this kid. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what's up for Raul Rosas next. Very impressive win for the 18-year-old. So we will see what happens with Raul Rosas Jr. coming up in the future. And that is going to do it for the preliminary card there. Raul Rosas does get that win via submission in the first round, by the way. I did not mention that. Um, yeah, the only thing I could really gain from that fight is Rosas Jr. is going to be a problem in the grappling game. Going to be a problem on the mat. Jay Perrin, he's a joke, dude. I'm not going to lie. All right, Bryce Mitchell, Ilya Taporia. First fight of the main card. God, I love this fight. I love this fight. I'm not a hater on Bryce Mitchell. I just don't agree with. I hate. I hate when all you can do is wrestle, and I think Bryce Mitchell showed that here. Ilya Taporia absolutely tore Mitchell up in the striking department. Absolutely tore him up. And not only did he tear Mitchell up in the striking department, Ilya Taporia was not afraid to engage with him in the clinch or on the ground. He was not afraid. Actually, Ilya Taporia ended up beating Bryce Mitchell at his own game. Ilya Taporia submits Bryce Mitchell. What a huge, huge fight for Ilya Taporia. Dominating fight for Ilya Taporia. Ilya Taporia is probably going to be ranked in the top 10 now. He's probably going to get a huge fight next. For Bryce Mitchell, he's going to have to start changing his game plan. He's going to have to learn how to fight when he needs to. He's going to have to learn how to fight on his feet. 'Cause this is a setback for Mitchell. Not only is he going to fall out of the top 10 most likely, he just got exposed in the striking department. So we will see what Bryce Mitchell can do in his next fight. But all props go to Ilya Taporia there. He absolutely stole that fight. So shout out to Taporia. Kid's on the rise. Can't wait to see what's next for him. It's going to be a big fight. He's an exciting fighter to watch. He's fun. So we will see Ilya Taporia getting that win by submission. And that is going to take us to the fight of the night, and one that I really enjoyed. Darren Till taking on Dricus Du Plessis. Fight of the night, but dominated. You could say what you want. This fight was dominated by Dricus Plessis. To be honest, Darren Till's lucky this fight went to the third round. Darren Till's lucky this fight went to the second round. Darren Till is lucky the first round he somehow was able to get the ref not to call it. Duplessis absolutely destroyed Darren Till in that first round. Destroyed Darren Till in the first round. Towards the end of the first round, the total strikes, not significant, the total strikes were 60-0 in favor of Duplessis. Darren Till landed 0 strikes towards the end of that first round. He got a few in towards the very end. But when there was like roughly a minute and a half left, it was 60-0. Darren Till's face was purple, especially the left side. Duplessis emptied his gas tank in the first round and could not get the finish. I don't know how. The ref should have called that fight, in my opinion. Um, to be honest, Darren Till wasn't really defending. He was saying he was okay, but he wasn't defending. So I think it should have been called. It wasn't. It goes to round 2. Duplessis was gassed. He emptied his gas tank out in the first round trying to get the finish. This forces Duplessis to sit back. Darren capitalizes on this. And Darren Till had his moments in the second round. I thought there were moments where Darren Till was going to finish this fight. But he doesn't. This fight goes into round 3. Duplessis is refueled. And he is ready to kill Darren Till in the third round, and that's exactly what he does. Dricus Duplessis gets the win via submission here. Fight of the night. Huge win for Dricus Duplessis. That is most likely landing him in the top 10, I would say. I would hope. Yeah, it's probably landing him, if not higher, probably at number 10 in that middleweight division there. Huge win for Duplessis. Darren Till does tear his ACL in this fight, so Darren Till is going to go on a hiatus yet again from the UFC. He said he's not retiring. I think Darren Till's time is up. Darren Till looked like he forgot how to fight. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, Darren Till gets absolutely wrecked with moments. I have to say, with moments. That's why it was the fight of the night. But if Duplessis didn't empty his gas tank in round 1, and if the ref called that fight, there would be no round 2, and there would be no Till potentially ending this fight in the second round. Huge win for Duplessis. Darren Till tears his ACL. Duplessis is going to have a huge fight next. Keep an eye out for that. He's an extremely fun fighter to watch. That's going to lead us into another great fight. A bar burner. A brawl. Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Alex Morono. Huge props to Alex Morono for taking this fight on 5 days' notice and risking his 4-fight win streak. And to be honest, Alex Morono looked great in this fight. He looked fairly up to date with his cardio. He looked great in the striking department, and I thought he was going to knock Ponzinibbio out. I remember Morono threw one hit to the side of the head on Ponzinibbio, and Ponzinibbio went on 2 legs. He looked like he was on ice skates for a sec. Morono was unable to finish him though, which was a huge mistake from Morono. I don't know why he didn't let loose there. This causes Ponzinibbio to fire back some shots of his own in the third round, and Santiago Ponzinibbio secures his win by knockout in the third round. Such a shame for Alex Morono. If this fight went to decision, in my opinion, he probably would have won. But yeah, Ponzinibbio just gets the best of him in the third round. Alex Morono's fight streak is snapped. But he looked great. Huge props for him on 5 days' notice. I don't think that lowered his reputation at all. I think that he only gained reputation after that. Great fight. Also, probably could have been in contention for fight of the night, in my opinion. It doesn't. It obviously went to Duplessis and Till, but Ponzinibbio Moreno put on a great show for fans. Now, that's where this UFC card ends. Now we transition from the UFC to the WWE. Paddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon in the WWE. And why do I say that? Because this fight, just like the WWE, has a planned winner. The UFC knew who was going to win this fight before it happened. Paddy Pimblett gets the win via decision. See, this is where I have a problem with the UFC. Jared Gordon won this fight. Jared Gordon tore up Paddy Pimblett in the first round. In that first round, it honestly looked like Paddy Pimblett forgot how to fight. Dude kept getting rocked the same exact combo. The same exact combo. No adjustments, no defense. Hey, Paddy Pimblett proved he had a chin. That ain't gonna last long for you, bro. Paddy Pimblett got tore apart in the first round. First round was clearly Jared Gordon's round. Clearly. Now the second round comes, extremely close round. I think it favored Jared Gordon slightly. But to be nice, for all the Paddy fans out there, I'll give Paddy Pimblett the second round. I have no problem giving the second round to Paddy Pimblett. Now here's where the judges, actually one judge, I did save the scorecard here, and I actually want to look that up. This is where one judge gets this fight completely wrong. Let me pull up my scorecard here. So round 3, Jared Gordon won round 3. Jared Gordon dominated round 3. Absolutely dominated. I mean, it's not the way I personally like to see a dude fight, but he controlled Paddy Pimblett in a clinch for almost the full 5 minutes. It was just pure and utter domination in the third round by Jared Gordon. So Jared Gordon wins round 1. Pimblett wins round 2. Gordon wins round 3. Who wins this fight? Because it's 2-1 Gordon. This fight. I don't get it. Now I pulled up the scorecard here. Two judges gave the first round to McCarthy. Both of them gave the first round to Paddy Pimblett. Don't make sense. Sorry, it doesn't. He got rocked in the first round. He got tore apart in the first round. Doesn't make any sense. Chris Lee does give that round to Gordon. Round 2, like I said, I'll give Paddy Pimblett round 2. All 3 judges gave Paddy Pimblett round 2. I'll give you that. Round 3. Chris Lee gives Paddy Pimblett round 3. Chris Lee giving Paddy Pimblett round 3 just about proves to me that the UFC is fixed. All about proves to me that the UFC is fixed. This is a bad look for the UFC. The UFC could not have their cash cow, Paddy Pimblett, lose this fight. They couldn't. So UFC had to get the judges to score the fight in Paddy Pimblett's favor. Now, I said in my preview show, Jared Gordon doesn't have great finish ability. I truly believe Jared Gordon's only way to victory in this fight was to finish Paddy. Jared Gordon could have destroyed Paddy Pimblett all 3 rounds. Could have destroyed him. Pimblett still won the fight. Now, Dana White was asked about the fight, and Dana White basically shits on Jared Gordon, saying his game plan sucked in round 3. That's really interesting, Dana White, because, I know it's not the best way to do it, and I know I hate on it sometimes, but Jared Gordon dominated Paddy Pimblett in the clinch. He dominated him in the clinch. As much as I hate it too, it does take work to do that. It does. So I don't know what Dana White's talking about. Dana White said Jared Gordon threw the fight away. I think that round Jared Gordon secured his victory. Get the hell out of here. And then when Dana White asked about a potential fixing, he gets angry. Now, here's the real interesting thing. Dana White gets angry, right? We're talking about a Dana White who has brought up the idea of the UFC being fixed numerous times and said it's a serious problem. But when he's asked about the Paddy Pimblett fixing, he gets angry, saying, "No, there's no evidence. There's no evidence." Okay, well, that's really interesting because a few months ago you were saying that it could be a serious problem. All these things all but confirm that the UFC is fixed, in my opinion. I'm not saying every fight is, but Paddy Pimblett was going to win that fight if that went to decision, no matter how the fight turned out. Paddy Pimblett is going to start losing fans for the UFC. The stardom is getting to his head. Pimblett as all the people tells all the people who thought he lost to suck his asshole. Are you kidding me? Really, Paddy? He lost this fight. This fight proved to me that Paddy isn't even close to being a real contender. He's just he's not skillful. I'm sorry. You know what? I'll give you skillful. He's made it to UFC. I'll give you that. He ain't going anywhere. The only way he comes into true contention is if the UFC allows that for him, because he's not winning fights. He's not winning fights. The UFC is winning fights for him. Paddy Pimblett's just a face. He's a cash cow. Paddy Pimblett, I'm not a big McGregor fan. Paddy Pimblett is making me like McGregor. He's making because even though McGregor was an a-hole, McGregor won. McGregor was actually a great fighter, and I always respected McGregor's skill as much as I hated him as a person. Paddy Pimblett sucks. I'm sorry. Paddy Pimblett sucks. If this was football, Paddy Pimblett would be getting the first pick in the draft every year. Paddy Pimblett sucks. And the UFC's in for a rude awakening. If they allow him, if they allow this to keep happening, fighters are going to leave, fans are going to leave. And this is just where it starts for the UFC right now. That's going to take us to Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. This is our main event, right? Now, this was an okay fight. It goes to full 5. But nobody wins. Your last pay-per-view of the year, your last pay-per-view main event of the year ends in a tie. This was a competitive fight. But Ankalaev clearly won rounds 1, 4, and 5. Ankalaev should be your champion right now. Ankalaev says he doesn't know if he can fight in this organization anymore. He wants his belt. He won that belt. Jan Blachowicz knows that Ankalaev beat him. He tells the UFC to give Ankalaev the belt. And here's where it gets even more interesting. And this is where the WWE nonsense continues. Moments after they announce the tie, what happens? Dana White announces Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill for the vacant light heavyweight title in January on that Brazil card. After Saturday night, you cannot do anything to convince me that there is fixing and there is WWE nonsense going on in the UFC. We're talking about moments after the fight for the light heavyweight title, the vacant light heavyweight title that ends in a tie. We get a new vacant light heavyweight title match. Glover Teixeira, great. That is great for him to have that fight. But man, do I feel for Anthony Smith, right? Anthony Smith, a guy who is supposed to be taking on Jamal Hill next. Anthony Smith, a guy who's ranked above Jamal Hill, does not get to fight Jamal Hill, does not get the opportunity for the belt. Jan Blachowicz does not. This fight was ending in a tie regardless. Jan Blachowicz does not get the opportunity for the belt. Magomed Ankalaev does not get the opportunity for the belt. This fight was ending in a tie regardless. Man, do I feel for the UFC fans, man, because we deserve better. We deserve better. Dana White looks like an absolute prick. We deserve better than this. This was an absolute fix job. Dana White can probably manage SmackDown or Raw better than he can manage the UFC. If he likes to pick winners, he doesn't belong in the UFC. I think this is going to get major backlash. It already has. Fighters are talking about it. Fighters aren't sure if they want to stay in here. Fighters aren't sure if they want to stay in this organization. I don't really have much else to say. I'm curious to see the news coming up the next couple days. Fighters' responses, fighters' reactions, fans' reactions. What a disappointing way to to end the year with that pay-per-view. Really disappointed. I feel bad for the other fights because the other fights were good. I just can't wrap my head. I can't get past the Paddy Pimblett fight and the main event. A clear fix job. A WWE move. Dana White's picking winners out here. I'll catch you guys hopefully with some better news and a better beat about me on Wednesday night, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Peace out.